6 months after the meeting that changed galactic history, Nexus Station had been transformed into something unrecognizable. What had once been a cold military fortress was now a bustling center of cooperation, learning, and most importantly, amazing food. Ambassador Jin Ho stood in the newly constructed Central Plaza, watching as members of 12 different species worked together in ways that would have been impossible just months earlier. The plaza itself was a masterpiece of cooperative engineering. Valari crystal formations provided natural lighting and climate control. Kethran architectural techniques ensured structural integrity in the station's rotating sections, and Nalar water features created a peaceful atmosphere that somehow made everyone feel welcome. But the real magic was happening in the kitchens. "Ambassador Jin Ho," called a familiar voice. Commander Boram approached, carrying a steaming platter that smelled absolutely incredible. Her forearms allowed her to balance multiple dishes while still gesturing enthusiastically. "You have to try this," she said, setting the platter on a nearby table. "We call it fusion cuisine. It combines human spice techniques with Kethran protein cultivation and Mysari fermentation methods. The result is unlike anything any of our species has created alone." Jin Ho accepted a sample and took a thoughtful bite. The flavors were complex beyond anything he had ever experienced. Familiar human seasonings blended with rich, meaty textures he couldn't identify, all tied together by fermentation processes that created entirely new taste sensations. "Boram, this is extraordinary," he said sincerely. "How did you figure out the fermentation timing?" "Trial and error, mostly," she admitted. "Though Counselor Dongwu's people provided the basic techniques, it took us 3 weeks to get the bacterial cultures to work with Kethran proteins. But once we solved that problem, the possibilities became endless." The success of interspecies cooking had become one of the most unexpected developments of the cooperation project. It had started as a simple cultural exchange, but had evolved into something much more significant. When species learned to create food together, they learned to trust each other in fundamental ways. Representative Taemin approached their table, his crystal form glowing with the warm golden light that had become his signature expression of happiness. "Jin Ho, the Council has approved the next phase of the Joint Colony Project. Construction will begin on New Harmony Station next month." "That's wonderful news," Jin Ho replied. "Have you decided on the final location?" "The Kepler 438 system," Taemin confirmed. "It has everything we need. Multiple habitable planets, rich mineral resources, and enough space for each species to establish their own specialized facilities while maintaining close cooperation." The New Harmony project had grown from Jin Ho's initial proposal into the largest cooperative undertaking in galactic history. Instead of individual species claiming territory, 12 different civilizations were working together to create an entire star system designed for multi-species prosperity. High Counselor Dongwu joined their growing group, moving more energetically than he had in centuries. The ancient Mysari leader had embraced the cooperation project with an enthusiasm that surprised everyone, including himself. "The preliminary reports from the agricultural teams are remarkable," he announced. "Combining human terraforming with Valari crystal technology and Kethran soil enhancement has produced crop yields 3 times higher than any single species' efforts." "And the best part," added Representative Hai Jin, bubbling up in her mobile watersuit, "is that the enhanced soil actually improves over time. Instead of depleting resources, the cooperative farming methods create increasingly fertile ground." Jin Ho nodded with satisfaction. This was exactly what he had hoped for when he first proposed cooperation over competition. "Any word from the deep space exploration teams?" Minister Jae Won's telepathic voice touched everyone's mind simultaneously. "The joint survey mission to the Andromeda Contact Zone has identified 17 potentially habitable systems. More importantly, they've made peaceful contact with 3 previously unknown species. This was perhaps the most significant development of all. The cooperation model that had emerged from the Great Misunderstanding was proving attractive to other species throughout the galaxy. Instead of the traditional pattern of expansion through conquest or cautious isolation, more and more civilizations were choosing to join the growing alliance of cooperative species. "Speaking of new contacts," said Representative Youngsik, his mechanical form approaching with smooth, efficient movements, "the delegation from the Spiral Coalition should arrive tomorrow. They're specifically interested in learning about human food-sharing protocols as a basis for diplomatic contact." Jinho laughed. "I never imagined that baking cookies would become a recognized diplomatic technique, but I'm certainly not complaining about it." Commander Boram gestured toward the plaza's main kitchen facility, where dozens of species were working together to prepare for tomorrow's welcome feast. "It makes perfect sense when you think about it. Food is universal. Every living being needs nourishment, and sharing food demonstrates trust and generosity in ways that words cannot." As they watched, a group of young beings from various species worked together to create what appeared to be an enormous cake. Human children taught Valari younglings how to measure ingredients, while Kethrin adolescents explained the principles of temperature control to eager Nalar students. "This is what I think I'm most proud of," Jinho said quietly. "The children don't see species differences as barriers. They see them as interesting variations that make life more fun." Ambassador Su Jin approached, her insectoid features animated with excitement. "Jinho, the Council has a proposal for you. We would like to establish the Jinho Protocol as the standard method for first contact with new species." "The Jinho Protocol?" he asked, confused. "Approach peacefully, bring gifts of food, share meals together, and assume good intentions until proven otherwise," Counselor Dongwu explained. "It's the exact opposite of our previous diplomatic methods, and it's been successful in every single contact situation since we adopted it." Jinho felt a flush of embarrassment and pride. "I'm honored, but really, I was just doing what felt natural. Humans have been sharing food to make friends for thousands of years." "And that," said Taemin, his crystal form pulsing with warm light, "is exactly why it works. It's not a calculated diplomatic strategy. It's a genuine expression of caring and hospitality." The conversation. Outside the viewing window, the warships that had come to destroy humanity were beginning to organize into escort formations for the first joint exploration missions to uncharted space. The age of galactic cooperation was about to begin, and it had all started with a plate of homemade cookies and the simple human belief that sharing food was the first step toward sharing everything else. He reached into his thermal container and pulled out the last of the cinnamon rolls. "Besides, I think this might be the beginning of something really wonderful for all of us." The council chamber fell into stunned silence as the full scope of the misunderstanding became clear. Ambassador Taemin stared at the holographic message display, his crystalline form cycling through confused patterns of light. "You interpreted our diplomatic summons as threats?" he asked in disbelief. Jinho nodded, his expression genuinely apologetic. "I'm afraid so. Let me show you how this message reads to human eyes." He pointed to specific phrases in the display. "Here you say, immediate cessation of unauthorized expansion. To us, that sounds like you're ordering us to stop exploring. Then here, failure to comply will result in decisive action. That's essentially a threat of attack." Commander Boram's four arms gestured in frustration. "But these are standard diplomatic terms. This is how civilized species communicate with each other." "And that's the problem," Jinho replied gently. "Humans don't really have a tradition of formal diplomacy between different species. When we talk to each other, we're usually more direct and informal. We say things like, 'Hey, we're worried about your expansion plans. Can we talk about it?' Your message sounded like an ultimatum from a hostile power." High Counselor Dongwu leaned forward, his ancient features creased with concern. So your government spent 2 years analyzing these messages? 3 different committees, Jin-Ho confirmed, reaching for another cookie. The Defense Council wanted to prepare for war. The Science Council thought it might be some kind of test of human intelligence. The Cultural Council insisted we needed to study galactic communication protocols before responding. It took them 18 months just to agree that you were probably serious. Representative Hyejin bubbled in her water suit. But surely you understood that ignoring our messages would be seen as hostile? Jin-Ho paused mid-bite. Actually, we thought the opposite. We assumed that if you were serious about diplomacy, you would send follow-up messages with different wording. When you kept sending the same formal ultimatum over and over, we became convinced it was either automated or not genuine. The aliens exchanged bewildered looks. Every aspect of human behavior that they had interpreted as aggressive or dismissive suddenly made sense in a completely different context. "Let me see if I understand this correctly," said Minister Jae-won, his telepathic voice carefully neutral. "Your species has been trying to figure out how to respond to us appropriately, while we have been interpreting your silence as defiance." "Exactly," Jin-Ho confirmed. "And meanwhile, we kept expanding because no one told us to stop in a way we understood. From our perspective, space is big and mostly empty. We assumed that if anyone had a problem with us settling on uninhabited worlds, they would come talk to us directly." Ambassador Soo-jin of the Thresh Collective chittered nervously. "But your traders and explorers ask so many questions about our cultures and territories. Our intelligence services believed you were gathering data for invasion plans." Jin-Ho laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both amused and embarrassed. "Our people are curious. When we meet someone new, we want to learn everything about them. What's your history like? What do you enjoy doing? What are your worlds like? What kind of food do you eat? We ask questions because we're interested, not because we're planning attacks." He pulled out a data pad and showed them some files. "Look, here are reports from our trade missions. Captain Lee asked about thresh music because he's a musician himself and wanted to know if there might be collaboration possibilities. Captain Park asked about Valari crystal growing because our botanists are fascinated by living mineral structures." The evidence was overwhelming. Every human action that the Council had seen as preparation for conquest was actually curiosity, enthusiasm, or genuine interest in cooperation. Representative Min Ho flickered with what appeared to be embarrassment. "The massive energy signatures we detected from your space, we assumed you were building weapons. Terraforming equipment and research stations," Jin-Ho replied. "Big projects need big power sources. We're trying to turn dead rocks into garden worlds, and that takes enormous amounts of energy. Would you like to see the technical specs? We've been hoping to find other species who might be interested in collaborative terraforming projects." Commander Bo-Ram had been quiet through most of this exchange, processing the implications. Finally, she spoke. "Human Jin-Ho, you said your people want to make garden worlds. Why? What do you gain from this?" Jin-Ho's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "Because empty worlds are sad and garden worlds are beautiful. Look, imagine a planet that's just rock and dust. Now imagine that same planet covered with forests and lakes and cities where people are happy and healthy. Which one would you rather live in?" He activated another holographic display showing before and after images of human terraforming projects. Barren worlds transformed into paradises of green and blue with cities that looked like they had grown naturally from the landscape. "We don't terraform planets to exploit them," he continued. "We do it to create homes, not just for humans but for anyone who wants to live there. Most of our colonies are multi-species now. We've got Nalar aquatic districts, Valari crystal gardens, even some Kethran military academies." This revelation stunned the council members. Their intelligence reports had focused on human expansion, but had missed the fact that other species were choosing to join human colonies. "You allow other species to live on your worlds?" asked Representative Youngsik, his mechanical voice showing unusual inflection. "We don't allow them," Jin-Ho corrected. We invite them. The more different species we have on a world, the more interesting it becomes. Different perspectives, different technologies, different cultures. It makes life richer for everyone. Ambassador Timon's crystalline form was now glowing a warm gold color. This explains some of the reports we have been receiving from our own citizens. Several Valari communities have requested permission to relocate to human colonies. We assumed they were being coerced or deceived. Not at all, Jinho assured him. Though I understand why you might be suspicious. Here, let me show you something. He activated his communication device and established a connection to one of the human colonies. The holographic display showed a bustling city square where humans, Valari, Nalar, and several other species mingled freely. Children of different species played together in parks while their parents conducted business or simply enjoyed each other's company. This is New Harmony Colony, Jinho explained. Population, 47,000 humans, 23,000. Valari, 16,000 Nalar, and about 8,000 members of various other species. They have a council government with representatives from each species, and they make decisions by consensus. The council members watched in fascination as the recording showed daily life in a truly integrated multi-species community. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. How do you resolve conflicts between species? Asked Councillor Dongwu. Usually over dinner, Jinho replied with a smile. Food is a universal language. When people are well-fed and comfortable, they tend to be more reasonable. We've found that most conflicts come from misunderstandings, and those are easier to resolve when everyone's sitting around a table sharing a meal. He gestured to the empty plates around the council table. Kind of like what's happening right now. Commander Boram looked down at the crumbs from her cookie and realized he was right. An hour ago, she had been ready to lead a military strike against humanity. Now she was curious about their terraforming techniques and wondering if Kethran worlds might benefit from human agricultural expertise. Human Jinho, she said carefully, if your species is truly peaceful, why do your ships carry such advanced defensive systems? Our scouts report weapons capabilities that rival our own warships. Jinho's expression became serious. Because space is dangerous, Commander. There are pirates, hostile automated systems, natural phenomena that can destroy ships, and yes, sometimes aggressive species that shoot first and ask questions later. We learned early that being peaceful doesn't mean being helpless. He paused to sip some water from a container he had brought. But our defensive systems are exactly that. Defensive. We've never fired first in any encounter, and we've never attacked civilian targets. Every battle we've fought has been in defense of ourselves or others who asked for help. Representative Su Jin accessed her data files. There are records of human ships engaging pirate coalition vessels in the Outer Rim. Because they were attacking Thresh merchant convoys, Jinho replied immediately. Your people sent a distress call, and our patrol ships responded. We've lost 17 vessels protecting other species' shipping lanes. The revelation that humans had been quietly protecting galactic commerce while the Council prepared to attack them left everyone speechless. I think, said High Counselor Dongwu slowly, that we owe you an apology, Ambassador Jinho. And perhaps we owe your species much more than that. Jinho waved dismissively. No apologies needed. This is exactly the kind of misunderstanding that happens when different cultures try to communicate without really understanding each other. The important thing is that we're talking now. The council chamber remained frozen in shocked silence. Jinho stood in the center of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, holding a plate of warm cinnamon rolls like it was the most natural thing in the universe. The sweet, spicy aroma continued to fill the air, making several representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. Ambassador Taemin was the first to break. His crystalline form had been pulsing red with aggression, but the strange new sense seemed to calm his energy patterns. The red glow faded to a curious orange, then to an almost peaceful yellow. What is that smell? He asked. his voice losing its earlier hostility. Jin-Ho smiled warmly. Cinnamon, sugar, butter, and a little vanilla. The dough has yeast in it, which makes it rise and get fluffy. Would you like to try one? I promise it's safe for silicon-based life forms. We tested the molecular structure very carefully. Taemin looked around the table at his fellow council members. Everyone was watching him, waiting to see what he would do. The tension in the room was slowly changing from preparation for battle to simple curiosity. I suppose one small sample would not be inappropriate, he said carefully. Jin-Ho practically beamed as he approached the Valari ambassador. He used a clean knife to cut a small piece of cinnamon roll, placing it on a simple white plate. The key is to eat it while it's still warm, he explained. That's when the flavors are strongest. Taemin picked up the piece with delicate crystal fingers. His species absorbed nutrients through direct contact, so he simply pressed the food against his palm. The reaction was immediate and startling. His entire body flashed from yellow to brilliant white, then began cycling through colors that had no names in any galactic language. His crystalline structure actually began to sing, producing a sound like distant music. "This is extraordinary," he whispered. "The molecular complexity creates sensations I have never experienced. The sweetness triggers pleasure responses, but there are layers beneath that. Comfort, warmth, satisfaction." The other council members leaned forward with sudden interest. If something could affect a Valari so dramatically, what would it do to their own senses? Commander Boram was the next to speak. Her 4 arms crossed defensively across her chest, but her voice carried curiosity rather than hostility. "What did you call these again?" "Cinnamon rolls," Jin-Ho replied, cutting another piece. "But I also have chocolate chip cookies and banana bread. Each one has different flavors and textures. What kind of tastes does your species usually enjoy?" "We prefer strong flavors," Boram admitted. "Sharp, intense, with significant protein content." Jin-Ho nodded thoughtfully. "Then you might like the chocolate chip cookies. The chocolate has a slight bitter edge that balances the sweetness, and I used real butter which should provide the protein richness you're looking for." He handed her a cookie, watching carefully for her reaction. Boram bit into it cautiously, her sharp teeth easily crushing the baked dough. Her eyes widened immediately. "The texture," she said in amazement. "It's firm on the outside but soft inside. And these dark pieces, chocolate, they melt on the tongue but leave a pleasant bitter taste. This is actually quite good." One by one, the other council members found themselves drawn to try Jin-Ho's offerings. High Counselor Dongwu discovered that banana bread triggered ancient memory cascades in his neural pathways, reminding him of foods from his youth 3,000 years ago. Representative Hye-jin found that cookies dissolved perfectly in her water-filled environment suit, creating flavors she could process through her gills. As they ate, something remarkable began to happen. The tension in the room didn't disappear, but it changed. Instead of the sharp, aggressive energy that had filled the chamber when Jin-Ho arrived, there was now a warmer, more curious atmosphere. "I don't understand," Minister Jae-won said, his telepathic voice touching everyone's minds. "These food items serve no nutritional purpose for most of our species. Why do they create such positive responses?" Jin-Ho settled into a chair that someone had brought for him, still holding his plate of baked goods. "That's a great question. On Earth, we call this comfort food. It's not just about nutrition. It's about making people feel welcome, cared for, happy. My grandmother always said that food is love you can taste." He paused to take a bite of his own cookie. "When I was preparing for this meeting, I thought about what I could bring that would show you who we really are as a species. I could have brought examples of our technology or our art or our scientific achievements, but none of those things would tell you what it's like to be human." "And baked goods do?" asked Representative Min-ho, his energy form flickering with interest. In a way, yes, Jinho replied. Think about what went into these cookies. I had to plan ahead, gather ingredients, spend hours mixing and baking and testing. I had to care enough about meeting you to put in that effort. And then I had to trust that you would be willing to try something new, something made by a stranger. He gestured around the room. Food is how humans make connections. When we invite someone to share a meal, we're saying, I want to take care of you. When we cook for someone, we're saying, you're important enough for me to spend my time and energy on. These cookies aren't just food. They're a way of saying, I hope we can be friends. The council members exchanged glances. This was not the message they had expected from a representative of an aggressive, expanding empire. Commander Boram finished her cookie and looked directly at Jinho. Human, she said carefully, your species has been expanding rapidly through our galaxy. You build colonies, extract resources, and ignore our communications. Explain this behavior. Jinho nodded seriously. I understand your concerns, and I'm glad you asked directly. But I think there might be some misunderstandings about what we're actually doing out there. He activated a small holographic projector from his diplomatic kit. May I show you some images from our colonies? The hologram displayed a lush green world with beautiful cities that seemed to grow from the landscape rather than dominate it. Humans worked alongside strange alien creatures, tending gardens and building structures that enhanced the natural beauty rather than destroying it. This is New Eden Colony, Jinho explained. The original planet was mostly barren rock when we arrived. Our terraforming didn't just make it habitable for humans. We created an ecosystem that supports over 300 native species, including several that were endangered on nearby worlds. The next image showed a massive space station, where humans and various alien species worked together in laboratories and workshops. This is Research Station Harmony. We built it to study the unusual stellar phenomena in the Kepler system. But we're not keeping that research secret. Every discovery we make gets transmitted to the Galactic Scientific Database. We've already shared 17 new technologies with other species. Representative Young-Sik of the Cogitate Assembly processed this information quickly. Our records show human energy signatures that appear to be weapons construction, he stated. Jinho smiled. Those are fusion reactors for our terraforming equipment. We need enormous amounts of power to transform dead worlds into living ones. Would you like to see the technical specifications? We'd be happy to share them. As Jinho continued explaining human activities with images and data, a very different picture began to emerge. Instead of a conquering army, humanity appeared to be a species of gardeners and researchers spreading through the galaxy not to take resources, but to create abundance. I think, said High Counselor Dongwu slowly, that we may have misunderstood your intentions. But if this is true, why did you not respond to our diplomatic communications? Jinho's expression became slightly embarrassed. That's actually a really good question, and I'm afraid the answer makes us look a bit foolish. Could you show me one of those messages you sent? Ambassador Tae-min activated a holographic display showing the standard Galactic Diplomatic Protocol 7 Alpha. The message was formal, official, and to human eyes quite threatening. Jinho read it carefully, then winced. Oh no. Oh, this is bad. No wonder you thought we were ignoring you. He looked around the table at the confused alien faces. On Earth, when someone sends us a message that says, cease all expansion immediately or face consequences, we assume it's either a scam or a declaration of war. Your diplomatic style is very different from ours. The realization hit the council like a physical blow. They hadn't been ignored. They had been misunderstood. 3 days after the council's war preparations began, every alarm on Nexus Station started screaming at once. The massive space fortress shuddered as hundreds of warships from 12 different species took defensive positions around it. Energy. Shields flickered to life, weapons charged, and fighter squadrons launched from hangar bays. In the command center, Admiral Kyung-ho of the station's defense force stared at his displays in disbelief. "Are you certain about this reading?" he asked. His sensor operator. "Yes, sir," the young Valari technician replied, her crystal form pulsing with nervous energy. "One ship. Human design. Small diplomatic vessel. It's broadcasting standard approach codes and requesting docking permission." Commander Bo-Ram pushed past the other officers to see for herself. Her scaled face twisted in confusion as she studied the sensor data. One ship? Against our entire combined fleet? "Perhaps it's a distraction," suggested Ambassador Taemin, his crystalline body flickering with suspicion. "Human deception tactics. While we focus on this single vessel, their main force attacks from another direction." High Counselor Dong-woo shook his ancient head. "Our sensors show no other ships within 3 light years. If this is a trick, it's an elaborate one." The human ship was indeed small, barely larger than a personal transport. Its hull was painted white with blue stripes, and large friendly symbols were painted on its sides. Even its name, UES Olive Branch, seemed designed to confuse rather than intimidate. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "the human vessel is transmitting on all standard diplomatic frequencies. They're requesting immediate audience with the Galactic Council. The pilot says he has an urgent message from Earth's government." Admiral Kyung-ho looked around at the assembled representatives. Each face showed a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. After 2 years of silence, why were the humans finally making contact, and why now, when the galaxy's entire military might was arrayed against them? "It could be surrender terms," suggested Representative Min-ho, his energy form flickering hopefully. "Perhaps they realize the futility of opposing the entire galaxy," Commander Bo-Ram snorted. "Or they're here to deliver an ultimatum. Submit or face our terrible weapons." That would explain their confidence. Only one way to find out, Counselor Dong-woo decided. Grant them docking permission, but maintain full alert status. Have security teams ready. 20 minutes later, the human ship docked at Port 7. The station's entire security force was on high alert, watching every corridor and monitoring every sensor. Heavy blast doors were sealed, defensive positions were manned, and medical teams stood ready for casualties. The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Jin-ho stepped out alone. He was not what anyone expected. Instead of military armor or intimidating robes, he wore a simple blue suit that looked comfortable rather than formal. His black hair was slightly messy, as if he had been running his hands through it during the journey. He carried no visible weapons, no ceremonial staff, no symbols of authority. What he did carry was a large thermal container that seemed to be his most prized possession. "Hello," he said in perfectly translated Galactic Standard, bowing politely to the security team. "My name is Jin-ho Park, and I'm Earth's diplomatic representative. I'm very sorry I'm late. We had some trouble with the navigation computer, and I'm afraid I had to stop twice to recalibrate our translation matrix." The Kethrin security captain, a massive warrior named Wu Jin, stared down at this small human who seemed completely unaware that he was surrounded by enough firepower to level. "A city? You will submit to scanning procedures," Wu Jin growled, activating his portable sensor array. "Of course," Jin-ho replied cheerfully. "Though I should warn you, I'm carrying some organic compounds that might trigger your sensors. Nothing dangerous, just some gifts I brought for the council meeting." The security scan revealed exactly what Jin-ho had claimed: organic compounds with complex molecular structures, but nothing that registered as weapons or explosives. The human's body showed elevated stress levels, which was understandable given the circumstances, but no signs of hostile augmentation or hidden technology. "What is the purpose of your visit?" Captain Wu Jin asked. "I'm here to meet with the Galactic Council," Jin-ho explained. "We received your messages, and I'm here to respond to your concerns about human expansion. I know we should have replied sooner, but there was some debate about how to properly respond to your Diplomatic style. The security team exchanged glances. The humans seemed genuine, even nervous. This was not the behavior they expected from a representative of an aggressive, expanding empire. "You will be escorted to the council chambers," Wu Jin decided. "Any sudden movements will be considered hostile." "Understood," Jin Ho nodded. "Though I hope you don't mind if I carry this container myself. The contents are a bit delicate." The journey through Nexus Station's corridors was unlike anything in the facility's history. Word spread quickly that the human had arrived, and aliens pressed against windows and gathered at intersections to catch a glimpse of this mysterious species that had caused so much concern. Jin Ho seemed fascinated by everything he saw. He asked polite questions about the station's architecture, commented on the beautiful crystal formations in the Valari residential section, and even complimented the Kethran guards on their impressive armor. "This is an amazing place," he told Captain Wu Jin as they walked. "Our architects are going to be so jealous when I describe this. We've been wondering how to build multi-species habitats, and this is perfect. Do you think your engineers would be willing to share some construction techniques?" The question caught Wu Jin off guard. Instead of arrogant demands or threatening postures, this human was asking for help like a student seeking knowledge from a teacher. They reached the council chambers to find every representative present and waiting. The great circular table was surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy, each one prepared for confrontation. Energy fields hummed with barely contained power, weapon systems were on standby, and the air itself seemed charged with tension. Jin Ho stepped into the center of the chamber and looked around with obvious awe. "Wow," he said softly. "This is even more impressive than the historical record suggested. You've built something truly magnificent here." He set his thermal container on a small side table and turned to face the assembled council. Then, to everyone's surprise, he bowed deeply. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Council," he began formally. "I am Jin Ho Park, speaking for the government of Earth and all human colonies. I want to begin by apologizing for our delayed response to your communications. There was some confusion about proper diplomatic protocols, and I'm afraid our first contact procedures needed significant revision." Commander Boram leaned forward aggressively. "You ignore our summons for 2 years and then speak of confusion?" Jin Ho nodded seriously. "Yes, and I understand your frustration. From our perspective, your messages appeared to be ultimatums rather than invitations to negotiate. Our diplomatic corps spent months trying to determine if they were genuine or some form of test. We wanted to respond appropriately, but we weren't sure how." He gestured to his thermal container. "That's actually why I brought something with me today. On Earth, we've learned that the best way to begin any important conversation is to share something good. It helps everyone relax and think more clearly." The council members watched in fascination as Jin Ho opened his container. A wonderful aroma filled the chamber, unlike anything any of them had ever experienced. It was sweet, but complex, warm, and inviting, with layers of scent that seemed to trigger positive responses in species that had never encountered such smells before. "I spent the entire journey here baking," Jin Ho explained, pulling out wrapped bundles. "I have chocolate chip cookies, banana bread that's still warm, and some cinnamon rolls that turned out better than I expected. I know you might have dietary restrictions, but our xenobiologists assured me that these ingredients should be safe for most carbon-based life forms." The silence in the chamber was absolute. The representatives of 12 warrior species, backed by the combined might of thousands of warships, stared at this small human who had just offered them homemade cookies. "I hope we can talk," Jin Ho continued, beginning to unwrap his baked goods. "I think there might be some misunderstandings we need to clear up. But first, would anyone like to try a cinnamon roll? They're really good when they're warm." The Great Hall of Nexus Station had never seen such tension. Representatives from 12 different species sat around the massive circular table, their voices rising in anger and fear. The air itself seemed to buzz with electricity as translation. Devices worked overtime to convert alien languages into something everyone could understand. Ambassador Timon of the Valari people stood first. His body was made of living crystal that normally glowed with soft blue light, but today it pulsed, angry red. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. 17 messages, he said, his crystal form flickering with each word. 17 official diplomatic summons sent to the humans, not one reply, not even an acknowledgement that they received our communications. Murmurs of agreement rippled around the table. The Valari had been trying to contact Earth for over 2 years now. Every attempt had been met with silence. Commander Boram of the Kethran Empire slammed her clawed fist on the table. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder. Her scaled face was twisted in frustration, and her forearms gestured wildly as she spoke. "Silence is an insult," she growled. "My people have fought wars over lesser offenses. The humans show no respect for our authority, no understanding of galactic law. They expand their territory without permission, build colonies without consultation, and ignore every attempt at civilized contact." She activated a holographic display that filled the center of the table. It showed a map of the local spiral arm of the galaxy, with human colonies marked in bright red dots. In just 50 years, those dots had spread across dozens of star systems. "Look at this expansion," Boram continued. "No species in galactic history has spread so far so fast. They move like a plague, consuming resources and claiming territory. If we do not stop them now, where will it end?" High Counselor Dongwu of the ancient Misari race nodded slowly. He was the oldest being in the room, having lived for over 3,000 years. His people had been among the founders of the Galactic Council, and his word carried great weight. "The pattern is troubling," he agreed in his soft, measured voice. "Human behavior violates every principle of controlled expansion that we have established. They seem to have no central authority, no unified command structure. Their ships appear in our space without warning or explanation." Representative Haye Jin of the aquatic Nalar people bubbled her agreement from within her water-filled environmental suit. "Our deep space sensors detect human vessels in the outer rim territories almost daily. They seem to be searching for something, but what? They take soil samples, atmospheric readings, biological specimens. It appears they are cataloging our galaxy for some unknown purpose." The room fell quiet as the implications sank in. Cataloging suggested preparation. Preparation suggested invasion. Ambassador Su Jin of the insectoid Thresh Collective chittered nervously. Her compound eyes reflected the holographic display as she spoke. "My people have encountered human traders in the neutral zones. They offer strange goods, accept unusual forms of payment, and ask many questions about our worlds and cultures. When we ask about their own society, they become evasive." "Spies," Commander Boram stated flatly. "They send traders to gather intelligence while their colonists claim territory. This is a coordinated expansion, whether they admit it or not." Minister Jae Won of the Telepathic Zephyrian Union had remained silent until now, his large eyes closed, in concentration. When he finally spoke, his mental voice touched every mind in the room simultaneously. "I have tried to scan the thoughts of humans we have encountered," he said. "Their minds are chaotic, loud. They think about dozens of things at once, jump from topic to topic without logic, and their emotional responses are unpredictable. It is impossible to determine their true intentions." This revelation sent another wave of unease through the gathering. The Zephyrians were master telepaths, able to read the intentions of most species with ease. If they could not understand human minds, what hope did anyone else have of predicting human behavior? Representative Minho of the energy-based Stellar Confederacy flickered with agitation. His form was pure light contained within a containment field, and when he was upset, he tended to shift colors rapidly. Our monitoring stations have detected massive energy signatures from human space, he reported. They are building something large, something that requires enormous amounts of power. The energy patterns do not match any known technology in our databases. Weapons, Boram said immediately. They are building weapons. Or defensive systems, suggested Counselor Dongwu. Perhaps they expect us to attack them. Why would they? Expect that unless they know they have given us cause? Taman asked, his crystal body pulsing brighter with each word. The debate continued for hours. Every species had encountered humans in some form, and every encounter had left them with more questions than answers. The humans seemed friendly, enough in individual interactions, but their overall behavior pattern suggested something far more sinister. Representative Young Sik of the Mechanical Cogitate Assembly processed data streams as he spoke. His robotic voice was emotionless but somehow conveyed urgency. Analysis of human expansion patterns suggests a systematic approach to resource acquisition. They target systems with specific characteristics: multiple habitable planets, abundant mineral resources, strategic positioning along major hyperspace routes. This is not random exploration. This is planned conquest. Ambassador Yoon Jung of the Gas Giant Dwelling Aerial Collective added her concerns. Human atmospheric processors have been detected in 17 systems. These devices can terraform entire worlds in decades rather than centuries. Such rapid environmental modification could destabilize entire sectors. The evidence was mounting. No matter how individual humans might behave, the species as a whole was clearly preparing for something major. The question was whether the Galactic Council would wait to find out what that something was, or take action first. High Counselor Dongwu called for order as voices began to rise again. "The pattern is clear," he announced. Humanity refuses diplomatic contact, expands aggressively into contested space, gathers intelligence through trade, builds unknown superstructures, and terraforms worlds at an unprecedented rate. These are not the actions of a peaceful species. Commander, Boram stood again, her forearms spread wide in a gesture of determination. I have been authorized by the Kethrin High Command to place our entire battle fleet at the disposal of this council. We cannot allow this human expansion to continue unchecked. One by one, the other representatives pledged their support. Military, vessels, defensive platforms, intelligence networks, technological resources, everything the galaxy could muster was being prepared for what seemed like an inevitable conflict. Then we are agreed, Counselor Dongwu said solemnly. If the humans will not respond to diplomatic contact, we must demonstrate the consequences of ignoring galactic law. Prepare the combined fleets, establish a perimeter around their expansion zone, and send one final message demanding immediate compliance with Council authority. As the representatives filed out to begin preparations for war, none of them knew that the human ship UES Olive Branch was already 3 days out from Earth, carrying Ambassador Jin Ho and what he believed would be the perfect way to introduce humanity to the galaxy. The thermal containers in his quarters were filled with chocolate chip cookies, banana bread, and cinnamon rolls made from his grandmother's recipes. He was looking forward to sharing them with his new alien neighbors.